Hello, everybody. It's Root Beer and my spooky hands and my mouse and Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion because I can't be bothered to clean up all my DBT11 pulls. Anyways, we are doing a product opening today. I got the Favrneel stand-up deck set because I figure why not, nice informative content just to see like what's in it. Opening content is always fun and easy to do, and also, I just kind of wanted Favrneel. I was never originally interested in this card, but I ended up kind of latching onto it as just kind of an example of the promo situation for EN, because, this came out as like a frameware promo during like DBT 8, back when Dear Days first came out, and it's like, this is the antagonist of your video game, and a unique playstyle that, for the longest time, just did not exist in English because they cannot be bothered to port promos properly. So, let's crack into it, shall we? Let's also not destroy my mouse mat. I don't want to have to go buy another one, although maybe I will if I ever find like a Bochi-themed mat, because Bochi. But anyways, so inside this deck set, we have the pre-con deck. We have 5 extra cards that are reprints. The short storage box, which is going to be the packaging that it comes in. I really like that they're doing that. I think something that players maybe don't necessarily think of when they first start out is just, how do you transport your deck? Sure, you can just shove a deck box into your bag, but if you end up with like more... Excuse me, if you end up with more than one, it does help to have like an additional storage box. So I like that this packaging is something that you can keep and use instead of just throwing it away. We have, of course, sleeves, which, God, we rarely, if ever, get sleeves in English, right? I remember all the way back in G era when they had the Legend deck, which, to be honest, this kind of reminds me of. I suppose the Stride deck sets are probably a little bit closer, but, this product having the, like, sleeves and the deck holder, which is the last thing on here, is very reminiscent of the Legend decks, which also had all of those things, though we never got the sleeves. I think what they did is they would give you, like, 4 sleeves, and you're like, what do I do with this? 4 sleeves isn't enough for anything. Though, funny enough, if they did it now, at least you could use those 4 sleeves for the Ride deck. But, anyways, let's open this up. Ah, you know, I honestly thought that this was going to be something we would have to, like, assemble ourselves. I remember back in the day, they would have these, like, really crappy deck boxes that you had to, like, fold together yourself. I think I still have, like, a couple of the Aichi ones from the Blaster Legend deck. But, something like this, where it would come, like, unfold... Where you see how it, like, folds together, so it would all come in, like, unfolded, and then you have to assemble it yourself. So I'm glad that they're also just giving us better deck boxes, although this has held up for quite a while now. I think this was my Aqua Force deck. But yeah. So we have deck box, which comes pre-assembled and seems to be of slightly higher quality just because you don't have to, like, fold it together yourself. I have a Tsukuyomi box that's quite old and kind of falling apart. So, we of course have the deck itself, so this is our pre-con deck. Unfortunately, everything in these decks is common. We'll go through the contents of the deck after this, but I do wish they could at least bother to give us, like, a foil version, and then styrofoam. But as I was saying, I do wish they would at least bother to give us, like, a foiled version of Favrneel. Like, Gramgrace had the benefit of being released as a reprint in set 8, which this one did not, which means you can at least have, like, a double R version of Gramgrace, whereas this only ever is going to come in common unless they give us those frame rare promos later on, which kinda lame, if I'm being honest. Like, because the other ones are like Orphis, Gramgrace that came out in proper sets. This guy never got his time in the sun, which is very unfortunate. And that also leads to a bit of contention with, like, the price of the deck, because it's like, you're charging $50, you're only gonna give us, like, commons, but you know, at least they are giving us, like, the sleeves and the box, which I really like. You know, I've always been a fan of these, like, full package products, you know. I'm sorry for anyone who was triggered by me, like, picking at the plastic with the knife when it just slips off like that. But yeah, as I was saying, you know, I do like the idea of including, like, sleeves and a box for these kinds of products, just because I think people don't necessarily think of that right off the bat. They don't think about how you need, like, sleeves, deck box, and all those things. So having a pre-con product that just has all of that included is really nice. It's just kind of unfortunate that the price is always a little bit higher than what you would maybe want, just because, you know, I think it was like 4,200 yen in Japan, which translates to around $35. So if it was in that like 35 to 40 range instead of being 50, like, I could very wholeheartedly recommend this product. But otherwise, it's like, this is a really neat concept, and I want them to keep doing things like this. They just need to, like, fix the price. But anyways, in terms of content for this, so we have, of course, our main man, Favrneel. So if you don't know what this does, you can only have one copy of Favrneel in your deck. At the beginning of your main phase, your opponent chooses a rear guard and retire it, and then if you did not ride this turn, it gets 10k and a crit. And then, when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn, you can put a card from hand to soul, draw a card, and at the end of the battle that attacked, if the sum of Dark States cards... God, how long has it been since they've been like, okay, it has to be from this specific clan? You know, I feel like I'm reading a card from like 2013 right now. But anyways, if the number of Dark States is 13 or more, you can Counterblast 2, stand it, and it gets Drive -1. So it's nice that this card doesn't discard for its restand cost, though Counterblast 2 is decently hefty. Anyways, you have this Rhino guy, which is kind of your ride deck. So one of the things that's going on with this set is they gave you a more generic ride deck. So you have this Draco Kid, you have this grade 1 that, like, when you ride, you can draw and discard, and then this one where, when you would ride from the ride deck, you can Soul Blast 1 instead of discarding something. So I don't know if I'm gonna keep this. I know in the video game, they use the Bruce ride line instead as a way of, like, building up soul, so could be interesting. I have to look again at all of the Dark States one. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. I know when I was testing this deck way back when they first announced these Dexes, I was just using the Bruce ride line. I'd have to go and double check to see if there's anything more generic that could help me, like, build soul, instead of just being like, oh, draw a discard, oh, you can, like, Soul Blast this grade 0 that doesn't count for your soul cost, and, like, ride up for free, quote-unquote. So first we have, like, Zailmort, which is just, like, Counterblast, put it into soul, look at top 2, call 1, put the rest into soul. So I believe this was like a main set card. I don't remember what set it was from. I vaguely remember using it during the first wave of, like, Dredjeweled, back when it was still a TD card before set 7 came out. I think this is decent just because it gets you 3 grades into soul, it replaces itself, although it is another Counterblast cost on top of everything. So you can, like, Soul Blast. This is a old promo card, Vorpal Scythe, so, like, on hit you can Soul Charge 2, and then you can Soul Blast 2 to retire an opponent's rear guard. Time Jarret Dragon, I believe this was, like, a common or a rare from some set. Like, placed on rear, you put a card from hand to soul to draw a card, so again, helping you to kind of build up that soul. And then, the unique new support for this set, which is Sorry about that, I think my headset just died, so I had to go and plug it in for a second, but as I was saying, a new card, Purgatory Baron Hrodus. So this is a new card specifically for the deck set, so at the end of the battle it attacks a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Faverneil, put it into soul, retire an opponent's rear guard. At the beginning of your ride phase, if you have a Vanguard with Faverneil, you can bind this card, discard a card from hand, activate Persona Ride until end of turn. You can't activate Persona Ride with other card effects, and you can't ride, which you were never going to do anyways with how Faverneil works. Excuse me. So we have 4 copies of that. We have 4 copies of this other promo, Squalid Freaks. So if you didn't ride, it gets grade +2, so it becomes a grade 4, helps you with your soul count. And then when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, if you didn't ride this turn, you can bind it, and all of your front row units gets 5k. So if you've already reached your threshold and you want to like power up your units, especially because you don't have Persona Ride inherently, this is a nice way to give you that little boost, so you have a bit of rearguard pressure. Steam Mage Ashadar, so this just gets 5k shield if you have 7 or more soul, and then you can put it into soul. So you have 2 of those. We have a reprint of Gungrum, which is very nice because that card is very expensive, though. I bought it all the way back in set 1, so it's not as impactful to me anymore, but yeah, Gungrum was expensive for a while. I wonder if it's still expensive now. Let's check TCG Player real quick. Gungrum. Steam Battler Gungrum. So it's gone down. I know there was a point where it spiked up to like $15 for a little bit, but then it's back down to like $4 now, but it's always nice to just have more prints of it, right? Still a really good generic card for Dark States that just gets you a free soul charge, and if you have the soul to spare in your archetype, you can draw an additional card. Ling, so this was a TD promo that came with the Drajewel TD. So I remember paying way too much money for this because those TDs were short printed, and you know, being a promo within the TD, it was harder to get your hands on, though I'm pretty sure this card is much more affordable now, just because people realize, like, wait, this is kind of eh. Anyways, we have 4 of the effect PGs. That's like if your hand has 2, or if your card has, oh my god, I cannot talk. If you have 2 or more in hand, you have to discard a card, so the 1 card PGs. You have the Dark States OT, just kind of the generic one. So again, nice that these get reprinted every now and then. We should just get rid of what's it called, over triggers in general, but whatever. I don't know if you want to play this in Faverneil. On the one hand, it's like so much power is concentrated on Faverneil, so if you can check it with its own effect, you're like, okay, 33k, it has 3 criticals, and you're restanding. And on the other hand, there's the question of like, well, maybe we could just play like the restanding one, the red OT, to like make more pressure instead. So I don't know, this is something I want to like play around with and try out different ideas. And then of course we just have our triggers, so they actually give you 8 criticals. Interesting. 4 draws, heals. They just don't bother giving you fronts with this one. Interesting. I figured they would just give you like rainbow triggers like always, and again, difficult because I think Favrneel, when I was testing it, didn't have a ton of draw power inherently. You'd have to try to build the deck more defensively to get to that, so I'm not sure if I want like fronts because this is like restanding and your rear guards don't have a ton of pressure on their own, or, you know, draws to kind of shore up your defenses. Anyways, as far as the additional cards, we have Demonic Swordsman of Riving, Elegos. So this is an important card that was originally a promo that I'm not sure if we ever got in English properly as a not, like, outside of this, like, as a promo card, where if it attacks a Vanguard, if you have Favrneel, put another rear guard into soul, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and then if your Dark States is 13 or greater, you can countercharge. So this is super important. Again, more retire. I think you have to lean a bit more into board control because your natural draw